the history of the Texas Tech German Dancers. In Lubbock, Texas, called the Hub of the Plains, some 24,000 students trek to and from classes at Texas Tech University, one of the largest campuses in the United States. For the past 5 years, a small and very special group of about 20 Texas Tech students has met twice a week to learn German folk dancing. Each year, hard practice has paid off with enthusiastic audience response. The Texas Tech German Dancers are the public relations branch of the Southwest Center for German Studies in Texas Tech's Department of Germanic and Slavic Languages, and they have many established engagements each year. Capitalizing on the advantage of being German dancers set on the last frontier of Texas, the group's director, Randy Kirk, has worked out a program which brings to audiences the best of German folk dances, often with the Texas flair of square dancing and the Cotton-Eyed Joe. This show is a regular part of local German festivals in Lubbock and in such towns as Slayton, Nazareth, and Derozet. But the group has also traveled far from Lubbock to participate each fall at the annual Wurstfest in New Braunfels and each spring in the Houston-Galveston area. The group has performed in Roswell, New Mexico, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and numerous points between. In a 5.5-week period from May to July in 1983, the dancers broke their own travel record. Designated by Texas Governor Mark White as the Texas State German Dancers and Ambassadors of Goodwill, they traveled through Germany on a tricentennial friendship tour. In 1683, 13 German Mennonite families came from Krefeld, Germany, to America and settled Germantown, Pennsylvania. In 1983, 300 years later, 13 Texans, the 12 dancers and one sponsor, Dr. Meredith McLean, traveled to Germany to show that interest in German culture is alive and well in West Texas. The tour of Germany began in West Berlin. The dancers were greeted at the airport by German host families. The families were waiting with customary flowers of greeting and welcome, and were waving small flags bearing the names of their Texas guests. The dance group's longest single stay of the tour was in West Berlin, where their 9 days were beautifully organized by the Steglitz government and facilitated by Herr Oldenburg, affectionately known later as Herr Ol. The group spent one day on an excursion to East Berlin. The crossing of the wall and the visibility of Russian soldiers impressed upon the Texas visitors the unique political situation of the host families of West Berlin. After just one day in East Berlin, the return to West Berlin brought with it a great relief and a festive sense of freedom. This festive spirit continued into an afternoon and evening spent at one of the largest western towns in Germany, West Berlin's Old Texas Town. After taking a tour of Old Texas Town and visiting a monument dedicated to those Germans who fell at the Battle of the Alamo, the dancers entertained the German crowd by performing their German Texan show in the crowded Old Texas Town Saloon. After a week of perfect weather, the day of departure from West Berlin was overcast and rainy. But the rainy weather did not dampen spirits. The dancers, driving rented Volkswagen buses, were traveling through the East German zone toward Braunschweig, West Germany, the next stop on the tour. In Braunschweig, the dancers' hosts were the members of the Indianischer Freundenkreis. For the second time, the dancers were dipping into the German Western club scene, which Dr. McLean had researched during the preceding summer. The beginnings of the German fascination with the Wild West go back to the writings of the German author Karl May, who, before his death in 1912, had written more about the American West than any other German author. His novels are still among the most popular with Germans. The dancers' main host in Braunschweig, Manfred Grieger, arranged for a marketplace performance by the dancers, a formal reception with the mayor of Braunschweig, an outing to the Wolfenbüttel Library, and an official tour of the main attractions of the town. From Braunschweig, the Texans headed south to their next engagement, and on the way, the dancers made an overnight stop in Rothenburg ob der Tauber, a town famous for its medieval charm. The day in Rothenburg was spent sightseeing and shopping.